And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Down the Garden Path, where we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice while doing our best to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. I'm Joanne Shaw, owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design, and with me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing.
Good evening, Joanne, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matthew Dressing, owner of Natural Affinity Garden Design. As landscape designers and gardeners, we believe it's important and possible to have great gardens, which are sustainable and low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen.
That's right. And fall is the time, surprisingly, for planting. As so many people are asking us, can we still plant? Of course you can plant. And tonight we're going to talk about planting bulbs. Amongst other things, we are excited to have Heirloom Heather Moran with us tonight. So if you have a question about cut flowers or cut flower gardening, send them to us here at Down the Garden Path Podcast at hotmail.com.
That's right. And before Heather joins us, a little bit about Heirloom Heather. Heirloom Heather started as a small-scale flower farm in 2021. This farm is dedicated to farming sustainably and using organic methods. They preach low waste and try to be as eco-conscious as they can when making decisions about the farm. Currently, they're learning about soil health, low tilling, and regenerative farming. Named after the Scottish flower, Heather is the head farmer florist at Heirloom Heather. She does all the planning, prepping, and planting. She has a background in graphic design and loves to make stunning color palettes with flowers. In 2020, newly sober Heather found solace in gardening when the world was basically turned upside down. Heirloom Heather started as a way to spread happiness and joy through flowers when people needed it most. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining us here. So tell us more about the story about how the farm got started.
Well, like all good things, creativity was sparked during COVID. We all kind of started a garden, I think. We were all kind of craving to get back to nature, get our hands in the ground, kind of have more sustainability with like food and agriculture. So I ended up starting the flower farm because when I was younger, I actually used to forage for wildflowers for my mom. So that used to come out of a place of kind of like loneliness when I was growing up. So I used to take these like nature walks and forage for all these wild, beautiful things. So I started feeling this same sort of feeling during COVID. So that prompted me to grow flowers along with my vegetables. I kind of just ended up coming back to like my inner child with the planting the flowers and having them in my life.
Excellent.
Nice.
And then did you right off the bat have the idea that you could sell them?
I've always been a little entrepreneur. So like ever since I was younger, I started a lemonade stand, which I'm sure every child did, but I also started a dog walking business. So in Claremont, I was the first dog walking business. I would knock on doors and ask people if they have dogs that they needed walked. And so that started. And then I was also really good at cleaning houses when I was younger. So there was one old lady in town that I just naturally became friends with. And she's like, hey, do you want to like help me clean my house? So then I started doing that on the side too. And walking her dog.
Oh, that's good.
And then word of mouth spreads.
Yeah, exactly. I also went to school for advertising, marketing, communication. So, and then I went to graphic design after that. I've always been really into color and texture. I loved graphic design, but I just feel like flowers are my medium.
Oh, that is very cool.
Very
Yeah. And how did it first start? Like you just, I mean, get social media or a website as far as you grew the flowers, but there's a short window, right? It's a very, what's the word? Product that like it goes bad. I can't think of the word.
Perishable product.
Thank you. Perishable product,
Yes.
Right? As opposed to a book, like Matt and I have a book, but it's not going bad, right? Like when we figure out what to do. So I feel like you would have felt like the pressure, right? To kind of.
Oh, so much pressure. I think I ended up growing these beautiful snapdragons. The first season, and I had no contacts to florists or no sales avenues, and they were beautiful, but I also were really heavily critiquing them because I was like, oh well, I know the bees have pollinated, and once bee pollinates something, it starts to try to make seeds, so then they start dropping their petals. But now that I've been in the industry for 2 years, I understand that my snapdragons were so wonderful. And I could have just even given them to any florist and they would have been happy. But I was so concentrated on like the quality of my product that I ended up just composting them. And I remember I cried. I sobbed so much. But like, it's just one of those things, right?
Yeah.
I also grew like beautiful ranunculus the first year, like these white, I think they were Blanco, Italian ranunculus, and they were almost the size of golf balls, maybe a bit bigger, and like I haven't even seen that at wholesale. Like now that I know how to like buy through wholesale and I can see what people are growing and also like what gets imported, I can see the quality of my first year flowers, and I'm like, man, I could have done so much with this.
Yeah, but you have to start somewhere, so I think that's amazing. Really amazing. Yeah, definitely. So and even to think about because the challenge there is like there's so many flowers, and ranunculus are hard to grow, so
they are, I was
that's
really proud when I nailed it my first year, and I think it had to do with how nice and cool the spring was, and we had a little bit longer of a spring, also because I was just super meticulous with them. But now the second year I'm like, you know what, they'll grow. I'll just put it on the ground. I'll pre-sprout them, put them on the ground. They'll grow.
Yeah. Now, do you start some things inside and then move them out, or do you just start everything outside?
So you do have to grow most flowers because of our Canadian climate, because we're in zone 6A, 5B.
Yes.
Depending on.
Because are you north of 7?
Yes.
Yeah. So then, that gets a little bit. Creeps a little bit up there, right? Towards 6B, Matt?
Yes. And I was just thinking, for those who are listening, there's a Highway 7 that kind of goes latitudinal across the GTA, and that's like the ridges. So there's a very defining line of warmer and cooler weather.
That's
for those not familiar.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to grow like warmer stuff. So if you're in zone 6, then you have a chance to grow things that people can't grow in like 5. The lower you go, the colder you are. And then the less flowers, I guess you have opportunity to grow.
Right.
What was the question again?
No, I don't remember. It's okay.
No, do you have to start some of your plants inside, or can you start them all outside?
Yes. So because of our Canadian climate, we do have to start most of them under grow lights in January or February, depending on the days to maturity, and that information is available all online. Johnny Seeds is a really good resource for that. So many growing guides there. You can get like comprehensive growing guides for each specific flower. But sometimes I do the wiggle room too. So if it's like 120 days and I'm doing succession plantings, because when you're running a flower farm, you can't just do one planting because everything will just bloom at the same time.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be strategic and do multiple plantings, kind of figure out how to keep your flowers blooming. And each flower is different and has a different longevity, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And different bloom times, right? So some will bloom, I'm sure you've got your early, like when we're designing a garden, right, Matt? We'll design, there's, because everybody wants all season, so that's always the goal, right? Is that something blooms in, because anybody can have I always say this to my clients, anybody can do a June garden. That's a piece of cake, right? It's everything. There's so many things that bloom in June, but the goal is to have something, what's waking up in April and what's looking good now in October, those are all the other months. Those are the challenge. So I would think even a little trickier for when it's cut flowers, right? You still want something interesting.
Yes. And that doesn't even account for like crop failures and pest pressure and weather and all that fun stuff.
Drought.
But yeah, so
yes.
yeah, drought has been a big one for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you do have to start everything inside under grow lights. And some things like Lysianthus, which is the longest seed that takes to, other than eucalyptus. If you want to get eucalyptus, you have to start that in December.
Wow.
And it basically is mature in the fall. So you're using that space, and it's eucalyptus plant only. You get one harvest. But then Lysianthus take about 6 months to grow from seed, and they are finicky. And they also have a lot of like diseases, like Bacillium wilt, I think it's called. They're really susceptible to that, and that makes it difficult to rely on them. So a lot of cut flower growers, we actually buy in plugs from different suppliers. Because we find it more cost effective with our time than having to baby the one plant. I usually buy Lysianthus plugs, and then I also try to grow them because I like to torture myself.
I was just going to say, because you like to punish yourself. I was going to say that. Yeah. I mean,
I'm always like itching in December. I'm like, I need to plant something. Gotta get going. So,
goodness.
In the dead of winter.
You must have is it inside? Do you have a little greenhouse set up?
I don't even have a greenhouse, actually. That is on the wish list, but so is so many other things. But this year I actually did a big investment, and I got myself a worm bin. So that's really exciting. So
tell
I have
us what
farm
is it
now.
Oh, okay. It was like, what's a worm bin? Of worms.
So it's so it's a way that I can compost my kitchen scraps and my flower material, and I have these worms, and they make me worm castings. So it's like a way for it to kind of go full circle.
Excellent.
But anyways, I'm going on another tangent.
No, and that's the whole sustainability, right? And regenerative.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in my iconography. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I have a butterfly, a worm, a ladybug, and a bee, because those are I find the biggest helpers in the garden. You got the worm for the aeration, you got the ladybug because a beneficial insect, and not Asian lady beetles, and the ladybugs also eat aphids. Butterflies because they're a pollinator, and the bees.
Excellent.
So ecosystem. But anyways, so I do grow. I have a garage. I have a heated garage, and I grow all of like my seeds in there. And my worm bins in there too. That's why I thought of it.
No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I just love that. I mean, there's many flower farmers. I think it's such a great new business idea, and the fact that you're kind of new at it, but you're doing so well already. Matt and I met you at the Toronto Flower Market in September, which was amazing. And your little booth sold out. Not little booth, your booth sold out. So So we missed you in October.
I know. I was like, I had 4 weddings I did. So 4 weddings in October. And I was like, man, I really want to do Toronto Flower Market again because I love the community. But I was like, I can't swing it. Swing it.
Yeah, knowing your limits is good.
Next year, I'm going to do all the dates of Toronto Flower Market if I can sign up for them.
Oh, good. Excellent.
So we'll see a lot of each other.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. I mean, I love that eco-conscious flower farm. I think that is wonderful. And that you're in Durham region, kind of in the neck, and Matt and I are our neck of the woods, which is great. So do you farm, I think you mentioned before the show, you farm in like 2 locations? Yes.
So I farm at my house. I'm actually I'm in Oshawa, but what is that? I'm like in a subdivision. So I don't have much space. And I also have I have like a big maple tree, and I have like a bunch of shade. So the only spot I have has about, I'm going to say 4 raised beds worth of growing space, and everything else I do in grow bags. And I just get strategic with my sun placement. So that's like basically the only place I get full sun. So like high value crops I would do at home because I can monitor them better.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so I do like ranunculus. I really love pansies, the Italian type of pansies. They're like really frilly and they're really unique. They're actually in my logo, so I'm like obsessed. But I went down a rabbit hole of sourcing pansy seeds. I spent a whole year sourcing pansy seeds, and I'm like, I need to have this select curation of pansies.
Yes.
So yeah. So I grow those at home too. And then I also have my mom's house in Pickering. So North Pickering, it's in Claremont. Yeah, so we're just on a sideline there. She's got a farmhouse and she's let me dig up all the land as long as she gets garbage flowers is what she calls them. But they're just flowers that that like fall on the ground or like she'll be like, hey Heather, my vase is looking a little empty. But she's lovely. And she actually was you met her, I think.
Yes,
she
was with you at the flower market. Yeah.
So she actually has helped a lot this season, which has been amazing.
Excellent. Well, you're so close to me. I'm like, you can plant in my garden. I'm like,
I'm sure yours is full of beautiful perennials.
Some perennials. I'm a shrub girl, as our listeners know, that I am primarily just because of time, right? I don't have tons of time to look after perennials and divide and prune and deadhead and that type of thing. Although I've gotten more over the last few years. But certainly the low maintenance ones like catmint and stuff. So. Yeah. So now we're definitely coming. Oh, Matt, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Got some questions. No, I think we've got some questions, right?
Yeah. So Darlene has written in and says, hello, Joanne and Matt. Are Heather's products available anywhere beside her farm? Thank you. And that's was going to lead into my next question too. Can people come and visit the farm as well?
So as of now, people can't visit. We're not open to the public just because it is my mom's house. It's her private house. So until I get my own farm, probably not. We are thinking about running a farm stand next year, but I will be running subscriptions for pickup and delivery within Durham region next season. So I'll be doing tulip subscriptions and daffodil subscriptions for spring flowers.
Yeah, so tell us more about the subscriptions. Like, so what does a flower subscription look like? What does that mean?
So basically what it is that you pay for either monthly or bi-weekly. I haven't decided exactly the dates, but you can gift them or you can just get them for yourself. But basically what it is, it's 4 weeks worth of flowers to fill your home with. The spring subscriptions I'm going to be launching in November, so it's a perfect gift for Christmas. And so I'm thinking bi-weekly or weekly, and basically what it is for tulips, you get four 10 bunches of tulips, 4 bunches of 10
tulips.
Yeah, and these are all specialty bulbs, so they're like peony like tulips. There's parrot type, which are kind of like frilly and wild, and then there's these fringe type, which I love. There's like bicolors. I really like sourcing different unique coloring of tulips, like stuff that you can't find at the grocery store or even at the wholesaler.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely put your own unique spin on it. You've got a very unique, beautiful product. I love that you spent the year looking for pansies, for sure.
I get pretty obsessive sometimes. So
I feel you there.
Yeah.
Joe has written in, hello, a serious question for Heather. Does Heather still dog walk or clean houses? The reason I'm asking is because I know people that need both services in Durham region.
Oh, that's hilarious. I do not, but I do think, I only know a dog walker in Toronto, so I don't think I could even help you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got Joe's email, so if you come up with something, we'll definitely get in contact.
And since it is fall and you're getting ready to do bulb planting, right?
Yes.
So how many are you going to plant?
So, what happened was in the spring. So basically with bulbs and flower farmers, we always have to think a year in advance. Basically, if a flower is blooming, we are buying seeds and bulbs and tubers and corms at that time. So last spring, I did all my curation of all my spring bulbs for the fall. So when I was curating them, I thought, oh, I'm going to start. You can actually force bulbs and do them under lights in your house. I bought a course in order to study this. And then it came to fall and I'm like, you know what? Actually, we're just going to take a break. And I'm just going to plant everything in ground now. So with that in mind, I am going to plant 3,000 tulips.
3,000. Wow.
Yeah.
And daffodils too?
So daffodils I actually invested in last year because they will multiply. And so you just have to split them, I think, every 3 years. But last year I invested in them. So this year we should have a big daffodil season. I also spent a whole year last year curating these daffodils. That was my hyper focus. I was like, I need all these beautiful daffodils. So I curated specific types. Exactly. Like I love the apricots. I love the buttercreams. I love like the oaky yellows. Yolks, like egg yolk.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The creamy, like butter. Yeah. The frillies, the weird ones, all of that.
So how many daffodils did you end up planting? If you're planting 3,000 tulips, do you have a number of roughly how many daffs you planted?
I don't want to say. I think, okay, so I think it was around 400 I planted last year.
Okay.
But if you take into consideration, no, it must have been more than that. I'd have to get my actual numbers.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Lots.
Okay, 400.
Yeah.
But
For anybody who's
they
tried to plant
multiply.
20, it's a lot. Right?
But every year they multiply once and then they multiply again. So 400 this last year. So 800 this year.
Nice.
Is what to expect.
1,600.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
I think I calculated something about like 1,000 daffodils in 2 years. So it must be more than that.
So then you must not be pulling them up, right? Are you just cutting off the flowers? Because that's a popular issue with the bulbs is if you dig up the bulbs and the leaves don't have time to put the energy back into the bulb, then the bulbs are basically garbage or compostable, right?
Yeah. So we don't dig daffodil bulbs. You always leave those in ground. What you can do is when you pick them, you can kind of twist and snap them. They kind of like pop out actually. Like,
Yeah.
But the thing with daffodils is that they do leak a toxic sap that will kill any other flowers in the vase. So what we do as flower farmers is when we pop them out, we always condition them. So we let them sit in, I think it's like, we let them sit in cold water for a couple hours until it like calluses over. And then you can mix them with other flowers and it won't leak that sap anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to mix the tulips and daffodils together.
Yes, well, that's good. Excellent. So is it planting? So what else is there different about the type of bulb planting that you're doing for cut flowers compared to what maybe I know Matt and I or our listeners do for regular daffodil or tulip planting?
So actually for cut flowers, we as flower farmers, we actually plant very close together because we want to maximize our space. You can do two methods. The trench method, which is backbreakingly hard, and I would not recommend because I tried both methods last year as my first tulip year, and the next method I'm going to tell you is way better. So anyway, you could plant a trench and then you plant them in like egg carton style. So you plant them in little rows all lined up. I don't know if you saw the picture on Instagram that I posted, but they're very close together. Okay. And then you just cover them up like you normally would. And then the other method is a no dig method. So what you do is you build a raised bed, you could either temporary raised bed, and then you just put them a nice layer of mushroom compost. So you put the layer of mushroom compost really like probably about an inch or two. And then you lay the bulbs again, and then you put a layer of mushroom compost over top. So about 6 inches is what they need. Now, this is a superior method because once you pull the tulip out, you pull it out bulb and all, because that's how you're going to get the stem length. And then once you pull it out of the mushroom compost, it's really fluffy and light. And then that's way less work to harvest. So if you're harvesting right out of dirt, like 9 times out of 10, the bulb will snap off. And then you're getting like kind of a tarnished flower, or you're ripping and you're pulling, and it just, especially I think I have like on the clayier side of things. So it was pretty tough, but night and day, the two methods. That's how we do it.
So are you able to reuse the tulip bulbs?
No. So we do not reuse those. We compost those. And the reason for that is because with tulips, I believe it takes about 2 years for them to actually make another tulip bulb. And the ones that we source is for cut flower production. So even if you were to save that bulb and plant it, the next flower that's going to produce out of it isn't going to be the same quality. And we're looking for quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the longer stems, that type of thing. So that's good. So that's good to know for our listeners who maybe have raised bed vegetable gardens that now are going to sit empty till spring. You can go ahead and like think about that, about planting bulbs in those raised planters now. And that, started before you even need to start working on your vegetable garden, you could have your own cut flowers.
Yeah, that's a great way. And like also garlic. That's another way you like to use my beds too.
Yeah, that's a whole other show, Heather. You can come back to that. I know. That was our 2 things. Matt and I were like this month. Okay, we're talking about bulbs, and we need to talk about garlic. So there you go.
So Bob has asked, hi folks listening in again, love your garden show. When you plant the bulbs, do we need to feed them with anything, or just plant and forget them? So you mentioned you use the mushroom compost in the one method. Would you recommend anything else, just if you're planting them just kind of for fun and regular enjoyment, or cut gardens?
So with your tulip bulbs, they are equipped, that little bulb has like all the energy that it needs to flower. So you don't need to fertilize or spend extra money on fertilizer for your bulbs at all. It's not going to affect the quality of your flower. Unless you're wanting to keep them in the landscape. Like, I mean, I guess you could, because certain tulip varieties for landscape, I think Darwin's are landscape
popular,
and they like multiply, and then so like those maybe. But the reason that we use the mushroom compost is that 2 reasons. Is that it's fluffy and soft, so it's easier to harvest. But then we take the mushroom compost afterwards and spread it on all the spring beds as like to repurpose it. And then all that is like a supercharged compost, because the roots have been through the compost, and it's just a really good method. I think good. Charles from No Dig, and then also Jenny Love was the one who came. I don't know if Jenny Love came up with the method, but she's the one I heard it from.
Oh, okay. I love how there's like a flower farmer community, right?
Oh, there's such a big flower farmer community.
Yeah.
And I love to give credit where credit's due. Like if I made something my own, of course. But like I always love to credit people who put that work in.
Oh, that is great. And you mentioned, so Alexis did ask about how, what if the bulbs are too shallow, or how far, and you said about 6 inches, right? Tulip bulbs should be about 6 inches down?
Yes, about 6 inches down. Even if you put them a bit deeper though, they will still come out. Like they'll find a way, but just don't put them like super deep.
Yeah, too deep in, they just won't do their thing.
That's like a penis.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So speaking about doing things, it's the bottom of the hour, and I'm going to just jump in here and thank everybody for joining us here live on Reality Radio 101. And thank you as well if you're listening to the podcast, whether you're on the way to work or in the comfort of your own home. Thank you for downloading and tuning in. I'm Matthew Dressing here with my co-host and co-author, Joanne Shaw, and you're listening to Down the Garden Path. Joanne and I enjoy hosting Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting and relevant topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from our research and from the guests that join us here on the show, like Heather Moran of Heirloom Heather. So don't forget, you can spend more time with us down the garden path. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Down the Garden Path Podcast is our handle there. And you can find lots of amazing past content on all of your favorite podcast providers. While you're there, please hit that subscribe button to be notified of new content. And please don't forget to like, share, and leave us a comment. We love hearing from us. You can always write us directly, Down the Garden Path Podcast at hotmail.com. You can reach us at any time during the week. And you can find Joanne and myself at our own websites, www.down2earth.ca for Joanne, and myself at www.naturalaffinity.ca. Now, just as we get back to creating your own cut flowers and planting bulbs for an early spring cut flower harvest, I just want to mention, Heather's mentioned her store and some wonderful cut flower subscriptions. So don't forget, you can find Heather and all of her email and her social media links at www.heirloomheather.ca. So you can reach out to Heather and ask some questions and check out all of her amazing products and her shop while you are there.
Mm-hmm. And weddings. So how is that's a whole other side, like a whole other ball game, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love weddings. I didn't know how much I love them till I did them this fall. Yeah.
Excellent. So I see on your website you've got wedding inquiry for 2023. So you still have some space?
I do still have some space. I love, well, the best thing about growing flowers, and especially for summer brides, is that I can specifically grow crops for them. So if they want like phlox or they want ranunculus, depending on the date.
Mm-hmm.
But like dahlias, there's like specific color palettes I can curate. It's really great.
Oh, that's good. Do you find many brides know? Like I think, everybody knows a peony and everybody knows roses and everybody knows hydrangeas, but do they know like what phlox and ranunculus are?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I like to just sometimes, so as you know, most roses are imported. Right. Most of them are imported from like Ecuador, Colombia,
yes.
And most of them are covered with a bunch of chemicals. So I tend to stay away from roses. Mm-hmm. So I'll offer alternatives that are local and fresh. So one of them would be ranunculus, which is like the rose of spring. And honestly, most people can't tell the difference between a lisianthus, a ranunculus. So people are more than happy just to do the local option and supporting that side of things.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I did work past life. We have to go for coffee, but I did work in a flower shop for 4 years. So yes, I've stripped those roses and yes, and the boxes that came from Ecuador and South America. So a lot goes into that. So I think that's part of it is why this has taken off for so many flower farmers is that people do, just like they want to get it at the grocery store, which aren't necessarily grown in Ontario, right? Some are, some aren't. But the thought of buying them from locally and know that it was grown locally and that we know where it's been grown and we know the chemicals or no chemicals, we have much better idea. It's like buying our food locally, right? I think that whole buy local has really translated across a lot of things. So I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's super exciting. And it's like, I find it's just so charming to like care after a plant. And then, especially for a bride, if like, let's say she wants the specific flower, if I'm caring after it for like months and months and months, and then it comes to fruition, I'm seeing her hold it and like she's tearing up and I'm tearing up and we just know all like the love and passion that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I design gardens, because I just love, people's homes and seeing the end result and watching, I was at a client just before the show. I was at a client from a few years ago and looking at her garden and yeah, so there's just nothing that brings me joy. So I can totally different scale, but I can totally relate. So that's good. Yeah, you mentioned you have an Instagram. So for people to check out your Instagram, you have an Instagram contest going on.
Oh, yes. So I just posted it today, but I am running an Instagram contest where you can actually win both flower subscriptions for the spring. So I'm running the tulip and daffodil. So you'll win both. And I do offer delivery for free in this giveaway. So you'll be
in Durham region, though. So
Durham region,
right? So those like Etobicoke people, I'm sorry, right?
Yeah, local delivery, yes. But yeah, so you'll be winning I'm gonna say it's gonna be about 6 weeks worth of fresh flowers in your home. But there's
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Gonna make someone's day.
Yeah, for sure. Now, aside from daffodils and tulips, are there any other, do you do alliums? Are there any other unique bulbs that
Yes.
would make a great bouquet?
Oh my gosh, I love muscari. I have a love with that one. I love the one called I think it's called Baby's Breath, and it's really, really light periwinkle blue, and it smells so nice. But I think they're very short, unfortunately, so they're really good for mason jar arrangements, but also now that we're doing weddings and stuff, for detailed work, like boutonnieres and and hair flowers, corsages, all that stuff. But I also am planting, I don't even know how to say it. What are those little cup guys?
Fritillaria.
That guy, yeah.
Matt's good at that, Heather. Let Matt say it.
Perfect.
Fritillaria imperialis, the crown imperial plant, imperial crown plant. Yeah, smells like skunk.
Oh, I didn't know that, but they are so cute. I love the bells, and I ordered the white type, like albus. So I'm excited to try them because, I was little weird. I don't know. They got little dots on them. They almost look alien-like, and I just gravitated towards them.
Very cool. That would be very neat to see in a bouquet for sure. Yes. I don't know if I've ever seen those in a cut flower bouquet.
Well, I mean, if they smell like skunk, maybe not. But I know a lot of floral designers love them.
Yes,
because of the uniqueness.
Yeah.
More so
not all
fall.
flowers. I'm not a big the lily. I'm not a big I find them smelly, and I don't really, So
I've never been a lily fan.
No,
No, I don't know. I just haven't. There's a lily called Salmon Star that's really pretty. It's it's got these salmony. Well, obviously you can tell I really like apricot, but apricot salmony speckles, and it's white. Okay. That's probably the only lily I would grow.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So in the growing season, though, so the problem is these seasons change fast. So is it just, is this just you full time going out? Do you have some help?
It is me full time most of the time. Okay. I do get help from my incredible boyfriend, Ricky.
Excellent.
Who's been an astronomical help. So he helps with everything, everything. So, but no, it's just mostly me who does it. My mom also kind of chips in, she'll come to the market. She's really good at selling flowers too.
Nice.
That's good. Oh, good. Yeah. Well, you should stay in touch with Matt because he teaches at Durham College in the Hort program. So you never know when you're ready to grow and hire a student or two. I
would love that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, students there who need internships.
Yeah, I will ask around for sure. I was thinking even for my bulb class, maybe I can hook up with you and I can take some pictures of some of the cool bulbs.
For sure.
Cool.
You teach a bulb class? Is it just?
Yeah, so as part of the annuals and perennials course, I do a whole class on just bulbs, and identifying the different bulbs and the different species and
Oh,
what they look
cool.
like.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I'm always
nice.
looking for cool pictures and unique cultivars to share with them. They just get so excited. So
Oh, very
yeah,
cool.
very cool.
That's good.
So
Now, John has asked us, why do we even have to remove any bulbs? Can we just leave them where they are? And of course, yes, you can, John. If you're growing them in your garden just to have them stay in the garden, we're removing them just because we want to put them as a bouquet, like a cut flower, right?
Yeah, there's also another reason. So if you're planting that many bulbs, you don't want them to stay in the ground because they're more susceptible to like spreading diseases. So there's a thing called tulip fire. So it'll like just take out all your crops, and it spreads from infected bulbs. And so what we do is we don't grow tulips in the same bed more than like once a season. Like you have to keep changing your beds. So you have to wait like at least 7 years to plant in that bed again. So with the
Wow.
raised bed
Oh, I didn't think it
method,
was
you
that
can
long.
just move it. So well, what I do is I take out the compost, then I put dirt in, and then I'll plant summer annuals. This year I planted a huge mint bed. So, because as you know, mint is like pretty intense with like spreading. So I use the raised bed to contain it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's the way to do it for sure.
And so, and you're going to put that mint in arrangements.
Yeah, mint is fantastic for arrangements. It gets really woody. I find it lasts a long time. It makes a bouquet smell delicious. I love to curate weird mints. So Richter's Herbs in Uxbridge is like heaven sent because they have tons of mint cultivars. Yeah, and there's ones that smell like candy and pineapple and apple. Go down the mint rabbit hole too. Yeah, so I have a bunch of mint for next
I know
year.
with plants, that's the thing with plants and flowers, right? And bulbs, like there's it's a huge rabbit hole that's why we've been doing, we haven't run out of topics to talk about, right? It's like one huge and all the, we're 5 years as a podcast, everybody, and almost 10 years as a garden show, as a radio show. And we really haven't run out of things to talk about because it's a huge rabbit hole.
That's right. So many things to talk about. Speaking of talking about, we also had Mason write in and was wondering too, hey, Joanne and Matt, I put my bulbs in a cool, dark basement over winter. Is that the best place to store them, or should I be using somewhere else for storage? So I know, Heather, you have a lot of spring bulbs, those hardy bulbs that are going to winter over and give us the tulips and the daffodils. But you've mentioned some of the summer bulbs that you might have to lift and take care of and store as well. So can you maybe, as part of an answer to Mason's question, can you kind of take us through what you have to do for all those non-winter hardy bulbs to preserve them and keep them going?
So the only one that I'm going to have to lift is going to be the dahlia tubers. So those are like the summer/fall flowers, and the tubers, if they stay in the ground, they'll freeze and then they'll rot. So with dahlias, we actually have to lift them out every year at the end of the season after they're done flowering, and we store them basically wherever will work. For me is a cold cellar. You want to store them cool but not freezing. You want them humid but not too humid, dry but not too dry. It has to be like the perfect conditions to store dahlia tubers. They're kind of divas of the garden, and they have a lot of work to go into them. So I grew about 250 of them this year. So that's going to be fun.
I was going to say.
Yeah. And but at least they also multiply. So then hopefully you'll have like 500,
exactly.
right?
And like last year, as you can tell, there's a theme. I spent a year curating dahlia tubers. I actually partnered with a dahlia farm in the States to get special cultivars here that aren't in the Canadian market yet. So I focused on, getting some nice ones for weddings, different apricots, different like whites that are really nice. So I'm really excited. Hopefully they overwinter. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to overwinter those. There's a couple methods you can use. Just depends on, again, where you store them. But you can just dig them up and leave them, all the dirt attached to them. This is my method, what I'm going to try this year. And I'm going to line a bulb crate, or just like a crate, or like a cardboard box even. And then you just pop them in there and then just leave them.
Mm-hmm.
So the ideal temperature is about 50 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
50 Celsius. Yeah. So it's not freezing. No, sorry, that's Fahrenheit. I'm looking at Fahrenheit. Sorry. 50, yeah, I don't know what that is in Celsius, because all like my flower farming and all that stuff.
Yeah, Fahrenheit. We're good with Fahrenheit. That's okay.
Perfect. Okay.
10, not saying 10? Okay.
10C for the Canadians.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, if they're hovering at that temperature, 10 to 13, I think is it. Like 13 is a little warm, but yeah, you should be okay. Last year, my mom dug my dahlia tubers and threw them in a cardboard box, and I meticulously, dug mine up, divided them, like cleaned them off, divided them, wrapped them up, or because you can wrap them in saran wrap, which I don't recommend because it's really terrible for the environment. But as like experimentation goes, I was like, well, I should probably try it to see if this works better. Or the method I used was cocoa core. So people use peat moss, which is also really bad for the environment.
Yeah.
So I used cocoa core and vermiculite, a mix of the two, and what are those? A clear like plastic tote thing.
Like Rubbermaid
Tupperware
or something.
Like
Tupperware.
Yeah, like a Tupperware container. Yeah, and I stored that in a Tupperware container. And the ones that were stored in the cocoa core mix did way better than the saran wrap ones. The saran wrap were shriveled. They were okay, and they all like still eyed up and they were fine. But like night and day, they were like little like soft hamsters. The other ones, they were just like perfect. So
good.
Then I looked at my mom's and they looked the same. They were perfect. And I'm like, well, why did I go through that?
Yeah.
So
well, you have to try it to know, right? So that's good. That's good.
I'm big on experimentation, because you won't know until you try everything.
Right.
Yeah. We all have such different, places to store. We have different gardens. We have all these different conditions from one place to the other. So yeah, definitely. Gardening is all about experimenting and seeing what does and doesn't work for your little space. And I think that's half the fun of it too. So,
it is.
Yeah. And so when you were in the middle of the winter, when you stored them, did you just leave them? Did you have to go down and take care of them? Did you check on the temperature or anything like that? Or is it just kind of a set and forget?
So they are susceptible to mold and rotting. So I think they'll rot if it's too cold, and they'll mold if it's too humid. So what I did is you kind of have to monitor them. I would say monthly, just go check on them. Just give them a little peek, because if there's mold, you can fix it. You can just rub it off and then do like a little sulfur shake, like, like the sulfur, shake it up. So, or even like cinnamon is a good antibacterial as well.
Yeah.
But then if they're rotting, you can also fix it. So the place that they're rotting, you just cut it off at the end. And then again, cinnamon, and then, fix the conditions. You also want to make sure they're not like all shriveled up, because that means you're really, really dry and they need humidity. So then you're going to spritz them. You got to kind of counterbalance it. But after, I think, like 2 months, you're pretty golden. So like come January, you're pretty good.
Good. Yeah.
Nice.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking too, as you're saying, you can cut off a tip or a piece. We're talking like the dahlia tubers or like canna rhizomes, or like the big, you can't go in and cut out chunks of like tulip bulbs or something that you try to bring up as well.
No.
That won't do for the rot part.
No.
That's
and did someone say he's storing tulip bulbs in his basement?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. He didn't say specify what kind of bulbs, Mason. It just says I put bulbs in the cool, dark basement over the winter. There more and more I'm finding people are taking their tulips, and some of my neighbors bring up their tulips every year, dig them up in the spring and put them in the basement or store them somewhere. And I've never done that. So, yeah.
I've never seen that. I did try this experiment. I tried to force bulbs like I was telling you before, but I did this last year, and I forced them in grow bags. So what you do is you can take a pot or a grow bag and fill it with dirt, and then you put the tulips in, and then you put it somewhere like cold and dark, sort of like the same temperature as you would have the dahlia tubers. Something that's not like freezing, but I think if they freeze on the top, it's fine. And then you bring them out really, really early spring, and then they'll bloom for you for Mother's Day. Like that's what I had, at least. And you can actually like force them to wake up.
Or I've heard you can't even put them in the fridge. Like if you've got a spare fridge in the garage or in the basement, that you can pot some up in the fridge, and then bring them out. That the cool thing about that is you could, if you did several, then you could kind of bring them out like a week apart or something like that. So you could definitely stagger the growth. So I'm kind of tempted to try that this year. I haven't had time to go buy bulbs, but it's been on my list. It's been on my list, kind of thing to do. And I'm I mean, tulips I find challenging. I don't do because of the squirrels. So I know none of our listeners have asked us about the squirrel issue. I recently heard a tip about, I know people have said about sprinkling cayenne pepper, but someone said to treat the bulbs like almost like shake and bake, like put them in a paper bag with cayenne pepper and shake them, and so that they, and also if they are planted 6 inches deep, I guess if you plant them shallow, the squirrels will get them, but they usually are pretty lazy and don't want to go as far as 6 inches. So but for that very reason, daffodils and alliums are great choices. I do want to mention that to all our listeners. The squirrels don't go after them. The bulbs, they just don't. So I think your money and your effort is better spent, I think. I know people love tulips, but I think sometimes the heartbreak of them being dug up right behind you, and crocuses right behind you as when planting or after you've planted, is just a lot. So that's why go alliums.
Yeah. I have like an insane high pest pressure, probably more than anyone I know, for flower farming. Bunnies actually had a nest in both of my tulip beds. These are two separate locations, two separate parts of the farm. So one at my mom's, one at my personal house, and there was litters in my bed because I use a polytunnel just to warm them up a little bit earlier to force them, try to get them for Mother's Day. Yeah, and so it was like a nice warm, hot climate, and they found their way in.
Oh gosh!
And I had baby bunnies.
Did they eat them?
Not much loss.
Did they eat them?
No, actually, they just made like a home, so it wasn't as terrible as I thought.
Yeah,
but for the squirrels, another tip I have is that I use a bunch of fall leaves on top of my raised beds, just to make it seem, so basically if a squirrel sees that it's like fresh dirt, and I could put a nut in there, but if it's covered up with like the fall leaves and debris, they're kind of like way less interested in it at all. They're like, oh well, that's just kind of whatever. I've probably already been there.
Yeah, I think they are lazy. Like, we don't think that they're lazy, but I think they really are, So if you can disturb it, you can cover it up with lots of leaves and mulch and stuff. That will help as well. So yeah, that's great.
We are reaching that point in the show where it's almost time to say goodbye. So before we let you go and say goodbye and thank you, is there anything that you would like to promote, remind our listeners about, or share another passion that's close to your heart before we go?
Yeah, I mean, what was I guess I already talked about the weddings. My inquiries for 2023 are still open, and I have dates there as well. I'll be launching my tulip and daffodil subscriptions in November. So great gifts for the holidays as well, for your local Durham region flower lover.
Yeah, and which I think is fabulous. So in the spring, do you do another type of flower subscription in the spring?
So that's for the spring. So
Okay.
they will buy the subscription and then you'll get it in the spring.
Okay.
So like a Christmas gift, they open it and they're already set for like, when is it? May or April?
Yes. When Mother Nature cooperates, for sure. So, but then in the spring, do you do one for summer?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one for fall for dahlias. Dahlia season's always huge. So
yeah. Oh, that's good. What is your favorite flower?
Ooh, forget-me-nots. I love them. I know it's unexpected, but I love how simple they are and how beautiful they are. Just like their simplicity. And I really love like the little yellow centers. Yeah.
Yes.
The blue.
Oh, that is very cute. Yes, I had to ask you that. So, yeah, our favorite, but it's hard to choose, right? It is hard to choose.
Yeah. Depends on the season.
Yeah, for sure. So, are you planting like you're growing? So, you're growing more this coming year. You're planning for more growth this year compared to last year.
Yes. And I also have a really exciting purchase, which is a cooler, like an actual flower cooler. So I'll be able to do a lot more with that. I know, I'm very excited. So I have a bunch of perennials planned to be planted, and I'm starting to curate my garden seeds and all that stuff, and my color palettes, seeing what's trending.
Excellent. Well, some garden designers now. So if you need help with good long, perennials and shrubs and that type of thing. So we're nearby because Matt's in Oshawa and I'm in Pickering. So we're nearby. So yeah, it's been so great to have you on the show and learn living the life of a flower farmer. It sounds glamorous, just like working on a flower shop. People used to say, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful." Yeah, but it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of heavy weight. Like really, it's a lot less looking at flowers as it is lugging buckets of water. So it's, it's one of those things. So being a flower farmer seems exotic, but it's a lot of work. So kudos to you and congratulations and best wishes for another great season of planning and seed starting and all of that. So
Here.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really enjoyed my time here and getting to know you guys a little bit better and your listeners and everything.
Excellent. We'll have everything in our
year.
Good. And we'll have everything in our show notes, how you can contact Heather and follow her on Instagram for her little contest and see what and weddings, if you know anybody getting married. So that's exciting. So thank you everybody for joining us here down the garden path.
See you all next week.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing right here on Reality Radio 101.